Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a look at something pretty radical. A school of thought that basically says read the Bible not as allegory, but as history, like straight up history mixed with divine action.
Right. We're detailing Teologia de Impacto, or TI, and its core premise is really challenging. Nothing symbolizes anything. Everything just is.
Everything is. Okay, so our mission here is to kind of unpack this literal historical way of reading, specifically how TI applies it to the book of Revelation.
Exactly. Forget abstract spiritual forces or, far future predictions. TI grounds everything. The beasts, the numbers, the prophecies, and the messy, verifiable politics and geography of the first century. Think. The Herodian dynasty.
So it's about mapping the spiritual onto actual named historical figures and places from that time.
Precisely. The whole approach demands we stop searching for symbols and start looking at the historical context. And maybe the biggest shift right off the bat involves how we understand time in Revelation.
Okay, let's get into that. Apocalypse 20, the famous 1,000 years, the millennium, usually read as a future golden age, right? How on earth does TI connect this to Herodes the Great?
Well, yeah, they completely flip that. For TI, those 1,000 years aren't a future era. They're not calendar years at all. They represent something already fulfilled. The 1,000 cycles of priestly service that Herodes the Great set up.
Wait, cycles of service, how does that add up to 1,000?
It's tied to Herodes' huge temple renovation. The sources TI uses state he consecrated exactly 1,000 priests for this new temple.
Oh, yeah.
And since each priest served like a one-year term or cycle, you get 1,000 priests equals 1,000 years of coverage. That's the period where the official Levitical system, the Herodian system really, was seen as providing ritual forgiveness, sort of containing sin's power.
Wow. Okay, so the binding of Satan isn't some future cosmic event. It's an institutional reality that already happened under Herodes.
That's the claim. Satan bound within that system. And if Satan is bound, he's cast into the abyss. So sticking to the literal reading, where is this abyss?
Right, it has to be a real place.
It is. The abyss, according to TI, is literally the temple complex itself, the one Herodes built. It was the place. Forgiveness rituals happened, but TI sees it as also the structure that kind of sealed up or contained the true spirit under all these human rules and regulations. A ritual pit, basically.
The temple as the abyss, and the great angel with the key and chain who does the binding, who's that?
Again, it has to be historical. So TI identifies the great angel as Herodes the Great himself.
Heroes.
Yep. The human ruler, the messenger with the political and you could say spiritual authority delegated to him to actually enforce this 1,000 cycle system. TI is adamant this whole 1,000-year period was fulfilled and spiritually kind of emptied out by the time the announcements came to Zacharias and Maria, long before 70 AD.
That just completely resets the whole timeline. Okay, so if the Herodian temple is the dragon's prison, let's talk about the prophets who challenge that system. Apocalypse 11 and 12, the two witnesses, and the woman in the desert. Who are they in this literal framework? This must be another specific ID.
Oh, it is, and it's probably one of TI's most startling claims. The two witnesses. They identify them as Maria and Isabel.
The mothers, Jesus' mother and John the Baptist's mother.
The very same, Maria and Isabel. They are seen as the ultimate embodiment of the clash between the old Herodian Levitical order and the new Messianic one.
That's explosive. You've got the Davidic royal line in Maria, the Levitical priestly line in Isabel, challenging the whole Herodian setup.
Exactly. And TI uses their actual life experiences, their history, to explain those weird 12,260-day periods you see in Apocalypse. They break it down into two distinct phases based on the text.
Okay, tell us about these phases. How do they map onto Maria and Isabel?
So the first phase comes from Apocalypse 12. It talks about 12,260 days of sustenance, or maybe hiding. TI reads this as the time when Maria and Isabel were essentially in refuge, being protected passively from the Herodian threat. Think, the flight to Egypt, keeping the infants hidden, God sustaining them, but no public action yet.
Okay, passive protection, sustenance. What about the second phase? The one linked to the two witnesses in Apocalypse 11.
That phase is 12,260 days of power of active prophecy and witness. This is when, according to TI, Maria and Isabel stepped into a more public role, actively, vocally proclaiming the coming Messiah, challenging the old system, and TI says this phase culminates. Well, it culminates in their persecution and death.
Right. Now, Apocalypse 11 says the witnesses are killed publicly, in the street of the great city, and
Yeah.
they resurrect. Is T.I. really claiming Maria and Isabel were executed?
Literally executed. The morte, the death, was a real event. They were killed publicly in a main square in Jerusalem, which T.I. identifies as the great city as a deliberate political and spiritual act by the Herodian authority, the beast.
Wow.
And T.I. connects this directly back to Simeon's prophecy to Maria in Luke's gospel, that a sword would pierce her soul. They see this as the literal fulfillment.
So if the death is literal, the resurrection must be too.
It has to be, for the system to hold. T.I. insists absolutely that after 3.5 days, Maria and Isabel literally, physically, rose from the dead and ascended into heaven.
Yeah.
A visible public event witnessed by people, sealing their testimony and validating this new apocalyptic law.
Okay, this connection between the spiritual and the political is central.
Yeah.
If the spiritual forces, like Satan, the dragon, aren't abstract, how does T.I. connect the dragon specifically to the Herodian dynasty, like the actual family?
Yeah, the sources are very direct here. The dragon manifests its power through the real-world political control and actions of the Herodian rulers. And the proof text for this is Jesus' temptations in the desert, Matthew 4.
The 3 temptations, how do they map onto Herodians?
P.I. links each temptation to a specific Herodian tetrarch ruling a specific territory at that time. It wasn't just a general spiritual test, it was a direct confrontation with the regional powers embodying the dragon's influence.
Fascinating. Okay, break that down for us. Temptation 1, stones to bread. Which Herod is that?
That first one is linked to Herodes Archelaus, or maybe Philip, depending on the source. Archelaus ruled Judea and Samaria, and he was known for, poor administration. Famine, unrest, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So the temptation for Jesus was about using his power for immediate material relief, a political quick fix for that specific region's problems. Jesus' refusal asserts he's the living word, not just, a Herodian-style governor solving bread shortages.
Right, resisting the political pressure of that territory. What about the second one, the pinnacle of the temple, the big spectacle?
That one gets linked to Herodes Philip. His territory relied more on centralized authority, public works, maybe even spectacle. So the temptation was to perform a grand public sign, a test of faith designed for political wow factor, playing into that Herodian road of validation. Jesus refuses that game entirely.
Okay. And the third temptation, all the kingdoms, bowing down in worship.
That points squarely to Herodes Antipas. He's the ruler of Galilee, the one who dealt with John the Baptist, the one who eventually judged Jesus. This was the ultimate temptation. Submit to the existing political power structure, accept human adoration, rule under their terms. Jesus' answer makes it clear. Only the Lamb, the Cordero, deserves worship.
So the Desert Showdown was a hyperlocal political fight, territory by territory, against the dragon's agents.
That's the T.I. reading.
Yeah.
And it continues. Think about Apollyon, or Abaddon, the angel of the abyss in Apocalypse 9.
Usually seen as a demonic figure, right? The destroyer.
Not in T.I.
Yeah.
Apollyon is identified as John Batista, John the Baptist.
John the Baptist is Apollyon. How?
When John was imprisoned in the fortress of Machaerus, which T.I. identifies as the relevant abyss in this context, they say he started actively coordinating his disciples. These disciples are the locusts, or Gephonotos. Their torment was preaching against the Herodian regime, a campaign coordinated from prison that lasted, they calculate, a literal 5 months before John was executed.
So John is the angel of the abyss, actively disrupting the old order from his prison abyss.
He is the destructive messenger sent to plague the Herodian system. It reinforces the whole nothing represents, everything is idea.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. If the Herodian ritual system is rejected, what happens to the foundational law, the law of Moses? What's T.I.'s stance on that?
It's pretty stark. T.I. argues the Mosaic law was effectively extinct, or spiritually sick, adoicida is the word used. It had lost its relevance for this new reality, the apocalyptic law.
Extinct. That's strong.
Yeah. They point to how Jesus talks about your law, or the law of Moses, distinguishing it from his own authority. It signals, for T.I., that the old framework was already superseded.
Okay, if the Mosaic law is out, and the traditional idea of an interbiblical period is just like a historian's label, when does the real spiritual transition happen? What kicks off the new era for T.I.?
It's pinpointed to a very specific event, Zacharias' muteness. When John the Baptist's father is struck silent in the temple, Luke 1.
His silence, why is that the trigger?
Because it signifies the end of the old priesthood, the Levitical priesthood of the letter. The official voice of that system is literally silenced, marking its termination and the start of something new.
And what replaces the Levitical priesthood?
The priesthood of Melchizedek, a higher non-hereditary order. And T.I. claims Ron Bautista belongs to this order right from his conception.
John the Baptist as Melchizedekian. How?
Because of the miraculous announcement and, crucially, his father's silence. It broke the physical chain of the Levitical line, placing John directly under this higher, divinely appointed priesthood. The law he preached, the one Jesus fulfilled, wasn't Mosaic. It was this superior apocalyptic law based on direct revelation.
And is there a moment where the shift is, like, sealed or demonstrated?
Yes, the wedding at Cana, that's key for T.I. When Jesus turns the water used for Jewish purification rites, representing the old Levitical system, into wine.
Wine representing...
Wine representing Melchizedekian blessing, messianic consecration. It's not just a miracle, it's the concrete historical act that seals the transition to the new apocalyptic law. Water into wine is law into grace, basically.
Okay. Let's tackle one more really big, almost geographical claim from T.I. The idea that Jerusalem itself is Babel, the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, this connects a lot of threads. T.I. argues that the foundations of the original Tower of Babel weren't actually destroyed, they were just reoccupied.
Yeah.
And that Jerusalem is built on that same physical spot.
The same spot with the same goal.
With the same essential ambition,
Yeah.
trying to reach heaven through human effort, building vertically. So when John the Baptist has his vision of Babylon the Great in Apocalypse 17,
He's not seeing Rome or some future city.
he's literally seeing Jerusalem, the great city built on 7 hills, the epicenter of human pride standing against God. That historical first-century Jerusalem is Babylon in his vision.
And the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven is the counterpoint.
Exactly. The New Jerusalem in Apocalypse 21 is God's answer. It's described like a descending, well, an inverted ziggurat, replacing the profane human Tower of Babel, Jerusalem. And those massive dimensions, given 12,000 stadia high, wide, and long T.I., insist these aren't symbolic numbers. They are the literal, observed measurements of this divine city as it descends. Concrete reality again.
This forces a complete reordering of how you'd read the New Testament. Which brings us, I guess, to T.I.'s most radical claim about the structure of the New Testament itself.
Yes. This is the capstone, really. T.I. argues that the book of Revelation isn't the last book of the New Testament, it's the first.
The first, before the Gospels, before Paul's letters.
Before everything, it's the foundational document, the principal irradiator, the radiating source from which all other New Testament revelation flows.
So Revelation as the blueprint.
That's the idea. The Apocalypse, the revelation given to John the Baptist, is considered the literal book of life, mentioned within its own pages, the actual record. And because it's the source code, if you like, everything else, the Gospels, which T.I. might see as partial historical accounts or Paul's letters exploring parts of the mystery they all derive from and have to be interpreted in light of this initial comprehensive vision given to John.
Okay, summing this up, Teologia de Impacto forces you, the reader, to completely abandon symbolic interpretation. You have to look for the concrete, the historical, the verifiable fusion of divine action within first-century history. It means rereading the entire New Testament through this lens of the apocalyptic law revealed first in Revelation.
Right. The spiritual has to be tangible, located in time and space. No more hiding in allegory. It's demanding, but it claims to be the most faithful reading.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about today, outlining this incredibly distinct approach. Thank you for walking us through these sources. It leaves us with a really provocative thought. If Revelation is the first book, the foundational text, what does that truly imply for how we understand the very origin of the Christian faith? How does it reframe the relationship between the Lamb and the old letter of the law right from the start? Something for you to consider. Thanks again for joining us for this deep dive.